Either due to lack of planning or unforeseen circumstances, these school field trips ended in disaster. What were these teachers thinking? Here are the top 15 most disastrous field trips of all time. Number 15. The Disney Prank. One of the most exciting times for kids around the world is when they find out where they'll be going on their school field trip. It's a tense time if the teachers decided to choose something fun or educational. And while many have to face the disappointment of packing onto a bus to somewhere boring, others are in for the times of their lives. You can just imagine then the reaction of two 8th grade classes from Roseland Public School in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, when they were informed that they were going to be going to Disney World, Florida for their trip. Some were skeptical at first because of the cost, but the teachers reassured them that they had secured a cheap deal to take all the students there. And the students could hardly contain their excitement. Their parents signed the permission slips and they were all set to go. All that remained was a final presentation where the teachers would tell them exactly what was going to happen. It turned out, though, that the school hadn't actually arranged for the trip of a lifetime, and that it was all just one elaborate prank. The teachers delighted in telling the kids the news while recording their reactions on an iPad, and they were actually going to a local bowling alley. It was the children who had the last laugh, though, because the school's district didn't exactly look fondly on the prank. The teachers were disciplined and never allowed to organize a trip again. Washington's most wanted chaperone. Taking a large group of kids on a trip is a huge responsibility, and there's usually not enough teachers available to ensure that everything goes to plan. To overcome this, parents are taken as chaperones, since they are surely the most trustworthy people to help take care of their own children. Things didn't exactly go so smoothly during a trip from the Lowell Elementary School in Seattle in 2011. While the actual excursion went without incident, one of the parents became suspicious of the father of one of the students and called the police. They were waiting at the school when the group returned, because it turned out that he was on Washington's top 10 most wanted list. The 39-year-old gang member who had previously been charged for assaulting a police officer, burglary, and harassment was known to carry a gun and fought to escape officers when they tried to arrest him. He managed to escape without a trace, and this led to a statewide manhunt. Eventually, he turned himself in. But it just goes to show you that you can't necessarily trust every parent because they might well be hiding a murky past. Number 12. Visit to the red light district. For kids, a trip away is one of their first tastes of freedom from their parents. Sure, there are teachers supposedly overseeing their every move, but most people have fond memories of bending the rules without ever being found out. Two 17-year-olds from the Kings of Wessex Community School in Somerset, England, were caught red-handed in 2005, however. They were on a physics trip to Geneva, Switzerland, where they were being shown the construction of the Large Hadron Collider, but decided to take matters into their own hands one night. They snuck out of the hotel where they and their classmates had been staying and went to the nearby red light district to take in the sights and drink in the bars. They would have gotten away with it too, had they not had their money stolen from them by one of the women who worked in one of the night spots that they had visited. Rather than letting it go, they reported the theft to the venue's barman, who called the police. While the authorities decided to take no further action, the boys were immediately sent home from the trip, expelled from the school, and extra precautions were taken to ensure that the other students were carefully watched for the rest of the trip. The most important thing when taking a group of students anywhere is to prepare as well as you can so that you can respond to any eventuality that comes up. Of course, not every event can be predicted, but parents certainly should be able to expect teachers to take every reasonable precaution. Something went terribly wrong in 2004 before students from the Beth Jacobs Seminary for Girls in London even left for a field trip to the Cairngorm Mountains in Scotland, and the whole excursion was doomed to fail from the start. One teacher led a group of 36, 16, and 17-year-olds up one of the mountains to a height of 2,500 feet. But they didn't have any equipment with them to endure the temperatures and the conditions. The girls were wearing their uniforms and trainers and became so cold that they used trash bags to wrap around themselves to try to warm up. To make matters even worse, the thick layer of fog descended around them, and then they completely lost their bearings. And of course, the teacher didn't even have a compass to get them back on track. In the end, she was forced to borrow a phone from one of the students to call for help from the emergency services, who arrived within a couple of hours and couldn't believe how poorly managed the whole trip had been. People to the Top 5's production team to bring you all the best content. Be sure to subscribe with notifications on and hit the like button. Number 8. The Burning Hot Trip. It's always annoying as a child. Your parents continuously remind you to use suntan lotion when all you want to do is swim in the ocean. But there are warnings like this for good reason, and any parent will tell you how difficult it is to always make a child listen about things like this. So what chance does a teacher ever have? This problem has never become more clear than in the story of a school trip that took place in 2015. 41 lucky pupils, along with 4 teachers, had flown to Barcelona from the Buoy Hill Visual Arts College in the UK to be immersed in Spanish culture. And on one of the days, they all went to a local water park. Despite the insistence by the teachers that the children should all apply lotion and be aware of how long they had been out in the sun for, a number of the 15-year-olds simply ignored them. Teachers aren't allowed to apply it themselves, so it's up to the individuals to ensure they're adequately protected, but some of them had to learn this the hard way. Later in the day, thanks to the scorching hot sun, some of them started developing rashes and blisters. In 2018, 2 buses left the Ladyville Evangelical Primary School in Belize, packed with students and teachers, to take them to visit the Rangers Post in the nearby Chipwewa Forest. As so much of the country is covered in jungles like it, it's an important part of youngsters' education to see how the regions are managed and protected, and hopefully inspire new generations to become involved in conservation work for themselves. This is a place where dirt tracks are the norm, though, and it was an arduous journey for the buses to venture through the undergrowth and twisting roads. They made it to their destination on schedule, but even by the time they got there, they sensed things were about to take an unfortunate turn. Rain began falling lightly at first, but it soon turned into a torrential storm. The students boarded the buses early to try to make the journey back to the school, but the roads were already turning to mud as the waters began to rise. The main route out of the forest, a road carved into the clay ground, became impossible for a bus to drive on, and the entire group became stranded. Because the storm was affecting a wide region, they couldn't get a hold of emergency services to request help, so one of the parents resorted to calling a local radio station to get the message out. Amazingly, this worked, and local authorities agreed to send assistance, but it would be many hours before they could reach the students, by which time any dreams the kids may have had about working in a forest were probably well and truly gone. Disastrous theater trip. While parents are certainly responsible for helping to craft the minds of their kids and to teach them a difference between right and wrong, it falls to schools too to help them in their development and ensure that they are instilled with the values necessary to be part of a society. In 2012, then, it seemed like a brilliant idea by the Dallas Independent School District to arrange for 5th grade school students to be taken to the theater to watch a movie called Red Tails, which was about the Tuskegee Airmen that had been selected as part of the curriculum for Black History Month. While the notion of spending $57,000 of school funds to take students to watch a movie was condemned by some, most agreed that the idea of teaching them about the importance of equality for everyone is crucial. There was one problem, though. There weren't enough tickets available to take every student, so the decision was made to only take the boys, while the girls remained at school with the option of watching a different movie. This separation clearly goes against everything the school should have been trying to teach the students and was met by derision from all angles. It turned out, though, that the girls got the better end of the deal, because while the movie the boys went to watch at theaters had a Rotten Tomatoes rating of just 36%, Akilah and the Bee, which was shown at the school, earned a rating of 83%. Number 4. The Party Island. When it comes to school field trips, some students are given vastly greater opportunities than others. While schools may try to take kids to a local museum or show, others look further afield. But it seems the better the trip, the more chances there are for those on it to misbehave. In 2017, students of an exclusive private school in Truro, England, where it can cost more than £30,000 a year to attend, were taken on a science trip to the Spanish island of Tenerife to learn about the island's formation and the local wildlife. A group of the students, however, were more interested in sampling the nightlife on offer in the capital city, Puerto de Santiago, and things soon descended into mayhem. They broke their 10:30 p.m. curfew to go drinking at a local bar, where one of them reportedly managed to buy cocaine from a local drug dealer. Others were found to have been smoking cannabis too, and this all proved to be too much for one of them who, after returning to the hotel, became unwell, and teachers had no choice but to send him to the hospital. Needless to say, those that were involved were sent home and punished for what they had done. The student who purchased cocaine was expelled, and the others were put on a period of extended probation. Still, at least they all had a school trip that they'd never forget. Number 3. Giving birth on a field trip. Teachers responsible for 12-year-old children often have to be prepared for awkward questions that involve puberty and growing up, but a school trip in the Netherlands in 2011 took an unexpected turn that no teacher could have possibly been prepared for. While on a visit to a local farm in the town of Groningen, which is around 115 miles to the northeast of Amsterdam, one of the girls began complaining of extreme stomach cramps. At first, the teachers thought it was a severe case of indigestion, but it soon became clear to them that she was in labor, and they immediately called the paramedics. She was taken to a nearby building where she gave birth to her child, but she and her family denied any knowledge of her having been pregnant until this happened. She was questioned by police who wanted to find out who the father was and potentially prosecute him, but she refused to say, which led to an in-depth investigation of all of her family members and widespread DNA samples being taken to find out who it was. Sadly, all signs were pointing to it having been her own father, so arrangements were made for the girl to be taken into foster care after she left hospital. And following that school trip, her life would never be the same again. Watch our binge-watching playlist if you'd like to watch all of our most popular top 15 videos. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and get ready to binge.